Brett Westgrove is here from, he's going to be, we're going to let Dave handle this a lot here, but you've heard him. He's a local guy, made good in Nashville. He's doing a lot of things musically. He's been at the Hodag 4 or 5 times already, which is great. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning.
Appreciate the time. And, boy, you have been a busy boy lately, zigzagging all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
Running your tires off in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm gonna need new ones before I take off.
Which is good. That's fantastic. So you got a couple shows coming up here. You got a little bar gig coming up, which is cool that you're doing that. You've got a thing coming up with Doug Stone.
That's right.
At the Q&Z. And then you're doing, what's this thing you were talking about? It's a TikTok challenge that you're doing with a kid?
Oh, yeah. So we're doing the Doug Stone show at Q&Z, and we've got an opening slot. So we've got a little TikTok competition for kind of local kids here in Wisconsin. Anyone that can get themselves to the show on April 5th, we can have them apply by putting up a TikTok of one of my songs. If you go to brettwestgrove.com/open, you can find all the details.
That's excellent, man. What a cool
giving
thing.
back, you know.
That's awesome. You come on, spend a little time back home, make your rounds, help some kids out. That's
if it wasn't for this place and my school and the whole town, I wouldn't be in music doing what I'm doing. So
that's awesome.
I want to give opportunities when I can too.
So I wanted to talk to you. You just dropped Memory Burns Like Whiskey, and we're going to be playing that here shortly.
Matter of moments.
And so that song came out February 9th. And this is a song you were actually performing last summer at shows.
Yeah, debuted it at Hodag last year.
Which is pretty awesome. That's a pretty good lead-in before, debuting a song at Hodag. That's a pretty good lead-in. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of getting from that release at Hodag to actually getting it to release to here in February?
Oh, man, that was a big one. I'll try to keep it short. It was actually supposed to be out last year at Hodag, and through producers and musicians and this whole process, things were not working out. And finally, I took the reins. I took over. I ended up producing it myself, hiring the musicians, playing a lot of the stuff myself. I recorded everything, mixed, mastered it.
It's a good sounding track.
It had to be right. So it was a long process. It's a year and a half that it took from writing it to get it out, but here we are.
That's amazing.
Doing great.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was this duct tape on your hats. Now, we got to keep this PG for the kids, but you do have some colorful messages on here. What brought you to putting the tape on the hats with the messages?
COVID. I came home. I was quarantining in an Airbnb in Wausau before I went to be with my parents, and I started live streaming. My fans wanted merch, and all I had was a Bass Pro hat and some duct tape. I did it as a joke, and I came on the stream, and I had a hat on. And people wanted them, and I've been selling them ever since.
That's awesome, man. Well, that's a cool thing.
Yep.
And I do, I know we don't have a whole lot of time here, but I wanted to kind of hit on a couple of things. Your earliest influence is country music. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I read an article that said you were heavily influenced by 90s country. And so today we feel like that 90s country is kind of having a resurgence.
Big time.
And, do you feel like you're trying to put some of that into what you produce now?
It's kind of a weird thing because I said I'm self-producing a lot now, and I don't fully have the ability of playing some of the instruments. Like pedal steel is critical, right?
Absolutely.
In 90s and fiddle, and I don't have that skill. That's an extremely difficult instrument to play, but it's one of my favorites. So yeah, it's a weird balance I'm trying to strike between doing what I can. I also, I had some pop influences growing up too, so you hear some of that. You'll hear some of the rock in this new track. You'll hear some of the edginess in it. And so I think I'm going to end up all over the map, but yeah, I love the 90s stuff, and anytime I can get steel and fiddle in my music, it's going to be there.
That's awesome. So you said also at one point in time you were just starting to get into real estate about a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Are you still kind of dabbling in that a little bit?
Yeah, I've got a property in Nashville that actually for a long time still is usually my main house, and then we rent it out when I go on tour, and we do like Airbnb, and working on getting up some other properties.
That's the way to go, man.
Yeah, it's a good side gig.
Yeah, heck yeah, Airbnb does generate some revenue.
Yeah.
And my last question for you today, and this is a little deeper question than I kind of wanted to go to, but I think it's important because you are young and you have been doing this a little bit now. You had mentioned in an interview in the Voyager, Nashville Voyager, talked about your time in California.
Yeah.
It talked about how in that point in time that your headspace wasn't really great, that it kind of took you some dark places, and you were kind of battling, just being in a good space. Would you have any advice, especially now, because, you're working with these kids in this TikTok thing, and so it kind of ties into this. Do you have any advice for young artists? Because there's so many good artists in Wisconsin. what advice would you give them to try to stay in a good, positive headspace?
Yeah, I think if we're talking just in the music page, I would say a lot of it is just be true to yourself and just keep going. Being authentic is critical. Ignore social media and don't try to be like everyone else, because that's a path to destruction, whether you're in music or not.
That's excellent.
Authenticity.
And that really was kind of something I was hoping you were going to say, because I think that a positive attitude and just kind of staying away from the naysayers, I think that really shoots musicians and artists in the foot a lot. They see that, they hear that. The negativity just weighs on you so heavy. Yeah. For you to come in and do what you've done, you've been around. I mean, rocket scientist basically.
Yeah.
And you've kind of gotten around the country a little bit. You've put your toe in a couple different pools here, and but everything kept bringing you back to country music.
That's another thing I would say is, stick with it and follow the path where it takes you. And like, I would have much rather have ended up in Nashville a lot sooner than I did, but it didn't deter me.
Excellent.
Just keep going.
There you go.
Well, we'll play your song here and see. We'll get some feedback from people. If you guys want to text in, Mike, what's that text number?
The talk and text line 715-369-0973. Let us know. Brett, hey, continued success, my man. Thanks for taking the time, and good luck on your little gig tonight.